Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show, live from our Kingdom Financial Group studio here at Fifth and State, also live on Facebook and on YouTube. Last week was National Crime Victims Week there, and let me get it straight here. National Crime Victims' Rights Week. And Paul Lukach, Executive Director of the Crime Victim Center in Erie, is with us to talk about that and the good work that they do across the board here. Paul, good to see you. Appreciate it.
Oh, thanks. It's great to be here.
Awesome. All right. Let's remind folks of your origin story. Are you an Erie kid, or did you kind of transplant in?
I kind of transplanted in, but I will say I hold degrees from Mercyhurst, Gannon, and Edinburgh. So I've been in and out.
Vested. You're well vested in our ecosystem. That's yes. Awesome. So what did you like? Your last degree? What is that in?
So my very last degree I was just awarded last week, and now I'm a doctor of social work.
Congratulations.
From Simmons University of Boston, the only school outside of the Erie limits.
So a DSW, is that what they call it?
DSW, yeah.
Oh my gosh, well, okay. Dr.
Crazy.
Lukach,
I'm still in a haze. It's like, oh, there it is on paper.
What did you have to do, a project or a dissertation?
Both, a project and a dissertation.
So what was it about?
So it's one of the big things I'm working on the 18th Street corridor there between Peach and Sass. I have created a blueprint to co-locate human services. So my goal on the 18th Street Plaza is to put 11 really good, like-minded human services together that people need. We know that when people knock on a human service door, they're not asking for just one thing. They come in for maybe one thing. For us, they come in maybe because they've been a victim of a crime, or their child has been abused in some way, or they've been assaulted in some way. But then they talk about housing. They talk about home instability. They talk about food instability, clothing. They talk about childcare. They talk about having access to mental health services. So my goal and the blueprint that I created, along with a paper explaining why it works, is that when we co-locate these services and we bring them physically together, those agencies that do what they do best continue to have autonomy and do what they do best, but then they can serve a multitude of people coming in for a variety of services in those 11 outlets along that corridor that we're hoping to kind of buy up and fill in.
Well, okay, so you guys are actually going to be the landlord, it sounds
That's what we're doing, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So send us your dollars.
Well, and it makes a lot of sense. We always heard that story that Erie's a service-rich environment, right? I mean, and so to even make it more convenient, I would think
that's
would be
just
helpful.
it. We have so many great human services, but they're not easy. They're not always easy to get to. If we put them together, and that you have that one almighty bus ticket, and now we have a safe place for your kid to be while you're getting services, or your kid's getting services, the other kids can be there. It makes a whole lot of sense to do that. It's also very economically friendly for the human services who decide to get involved. For instance, that plaza is one big giant building. It's subdivided into 11 spaces, right?
Okay.
But now 11 agencies can take care of it, can maintain it, can keep it clean, can make it inviting, much more cheap on the cheap scale than if we all had freestanding buildings all over the city, which is currently what's happening. And then, of course, a lot of our great services are so remote, people don't even know what they are or how to get to them.
Wow. That seems helpful, and again, a really smart way approach to it. The going. So you did a whole dissertation and plan and
3 years of work. Yes.
That's cool. Well, you already have the game plan, right? You already have the template.
Right.
Talk about crime in Erie. Are we? I mean, people say that we're a safe place, but that doesn't mean that we don't have victims.
I can't ever say, and I used to say this even a few years ago, Erie's a very safe place, come to Erie, but they just had another shooting in Florida, a mass shooting, which was all supposed to be a safe place, right? I don't know that we can use that term anymore. What's a safe place? What we need to do, though, is be well informed and to be as safe as we possibly can. So part of the Crime Victim Center's mission in its 53 years of service is to make sure we're providing those resources and that information to say, this is what crime looks like. This is how you avoid crime. This is how you inform your children. This is how you trust adults. This is how we build programs so that we have trusting adults. Because one of the things we're missing in this community and in every community across our great nation is adult supervision that is enlightened, that is informed, that cares for all the kiddos in their community, that looks out for all of their kiddos in their community. You might hear people in their 70s and 80s talk about, when I was a kid, and if I did something two blocks down, my parents knew about it before I got home. Well, we don't have that kind of thing anymore.
Yeah, that was a community sense.
Yes.
In Little Italy or
Right.
Little Russia or Little
I know
Poland,
you go to my church, or you're part of my social group, and
Right.
I'm going to tell your parents that you're smoking on the corner, because we don't do that here, right?
Right.
So we got to get back to doing that, and there are a lot of good people, there are a lot of good adults out there who are afraid or don't know how to interact positively with social groups that are kid centric, and with supporting kids. We used to have the kids cafe downtown, and we need to do more of those things, because it makes a difference, it makes an impact, and just one reasonable adult taking a positive interest in a kid's life, you know the stories, changes that kid's life forever. Yeah. So we need to do more of that. We need to get back to that. So the Crime Victim Center strives to bring those programs forth so that we can do that. But awareness is huge, and talking about the crimes. I can say violent crime is down across the nation and across Erie, and that's a beautiful thing. But stupid crimes like child abuse, domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, these are all very preventable things that are happening at a much higher pace than they should ever be happening in Erie County. And we have ways of helping people understand, what does that look like, and how do you eliminate it? How do we help people in the service industry, especially bar industry? How do we say, okay, look for these signs, and here are things you can do? And we have some wonderful programs. I don't want to call anybody out, but we have some great bars and restaurants that do that really, really well. And we have other ones who just don't care. But it takes everybody to be on board to say, oh, this doesn't look right. This isn't good. I'm going to say something, or I'm going to intervene, or I'm going to pretend, I'm a friend, and just, popping in and, hey, is everything okay here? Again, places like the Crime Victim Center work with the community, work with individuals to make sure that we have that enlightenment in our community. And then we, of course, work with all the people who unfortunately have been affected by crime, sexual assault, child abuse, maltreatment, all of those kind of things.
It's interesting that your mission is expansive enough to be preventative. And so we've done conversations, for example, about, what to do to protect yourself from maybe a mass shooter.
Right.
How do you have that third eye going, or placement and self-protection kinds of things? I mean, that's what we're talking about here, right?
Absolutely. And I think they go hand in hand, and we're lucky. There are 57 sexual assault centers in Pennsylvania. We are one of the only, we are one of the 13 or 14 comprehensive, which means we serve every type of crime, possible. If you've been offended in some way, it's a crime. We're going to be there for you in counseling, in restitution, in victim advocacy, in, just working through the whole court system, whatever you need in those spaces and however you want to take it. But I think it's also incredibly important that those agencies also have a prevention education crew. It's one of the things that is often supported but never funded. And so I have to say, thank God for the generous people and the Erie Community Foundation and the Gaming Revenue Authority and all the groups who say, oh, we need these things in our community, because Erie is one of the few places in Pennsylvania that have such a robust education prevention department, and we need to do more of it. And unfortunately, it's one of the things, like I said, that people want, but nobody wants to fund it. So Erie funds it, and it's a good thing. And we need to be active, and we need to be enlightening the community.
I want you to talk about some of the cohorts that end up being maybe more vulnerable than others. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking of, children that age out of the foster system. I hear terrible things. They're very vulnerable.
It's a huge vulnerable population, and it's one of our biggest homeless teen populations, because no reasonable adult has taken the time to understand that child. And I get it. Some of these kids have behavior problems. Some of them didn't get the mental health care that they needed, or was misguided or misdiagnosed. Some of them just couldn't make that connection with the reasonable adult, and so they don't have a parental figure to look up to. That's so huge. We need to be able to do that. It's one of the things I think PAL program does so well, and I'm so glad we have that, and we need more of that. But then these kids age out, and the families. And granted, there are really great caregivers in the foster care system. Let's face it, there's some not so good people either who do it for, I don't know, they say they do it for the money. I don't get that, but whatever. It's not, but okay, you're 18, get the hell out. And so now this kid doesn't know what to do. They might be struggling with mental health. They might be struggling with their sexuality. They might be just very immature and not ready to go to whatever that next step is. And no one has given them options to do that. So they get into drugs and alcohol. They get into petty crime. They end up being victimized sexually, physically, mentally, because people can take advantage of them because they don't have that role model or that roadmap to say, okay, this is what I need to do next.
I'm a big supporter of the city mission. And 30 years ago, I'd go to the banquet, and it was, let's face it, it was typical, maybe a veteran, over 50. Now you go there and you have kids that have been addicted for years and they're in their 20s. It's tough, Paul.
You see the teenagers coming into the soup kitchen lines if you go and volunteer there.
Yeah.
And it's like, this shouldn't be a thing for kids. This shouldn't be a thing for anybody. But it is. And then, of course, preteens are incredibly vulnerable because they're young, they're inexperienced, especially preteens who don't have a parental figure, who don't have a good figure to come home to. This says, okay, did you do your homework? Did you wash behind your ears? Did you, do those things? Did you go and help the neighbor rake their leaves? All of those things. We need to bring that back. And again, I think there are adults who want to do that. They just don't know how, or they're afraid. And so we want to encourage them to come and take our classes and get involved and get involved in group activities where there's safety in numbers and see how that stuff works. Any person, young adult, older person with any kind of disability, incredibly vulnerable because they rely so much on other people for their care. And when you have no mobility and you need somebody to make sure that you can get in and out of the bathroom and take a shower and have a meal and maybe have to be assisted with all those things, it's too easy for a person to get frustrated and upset and either intentionally or unintentionally cause harm to those people. And again, it comes down to patience. It comes down to training. It comes down to a whole lot of training. And when you're paying somebody, $9 an hour to take care of a loan, really? These are the people we love and care about most in our life. They should be at the top of the totem pole. We should be making sure they have every benefit possible, that they're taken care of so that they have the ability and the desire to take care of those people we love. We have it all backwards here.
It seems to, but boy, you start counting up all the things that are underfunded, and it really turns out to be a lot. Whether it is personal care assistance, for people like you were just mentioning, or we had a child care conversation yesterday, and the kids that we have, the people that are taking care of our babies and our 2-year-olds are making $12-14 an hour. Yikes.
Not okay. Everybody deserves a living wage, that they can have their home, they can have their car, they can have their life, they can send their kids to the school they want to, that they're not, they're not facing food instability. Those should just be given things. We are this great republic. We are this great democracy of, this great experiment. Well, the experiment's failing when we're not taking care of every single one of our people.
We're talking to Paul Lukach. We've got to take our first break here. It's 20 after 4. Stay with us, having the crucial conversations that Erie needs. It's Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show. Let's talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show here. Paul Lukach from the Crime Victim Center is our guest here. And we're talking about National Crime Victims' Rights Week, which was about a week or so ago. What are victims' rights?
So in Pennsylvania, excuse me, we have a Victim Bill of Rights that says a victim of any type of crime has the right to seek counseling free of charge, has the right to have an advocate in any way they want that, whether it's a sexual assault and they want accompaniment to the ER for an exam, whether it's accompaniment to the police station. And if a victim decides that they know their perpetrator and we have a case and they want to move forward with it, we are preparing them for that trial, and all the things go in that. And we are with them in that trial. Wow. Before, during, and after. And we're also preparing people for all the possibility outcomes, because we don't know what's going to happen in that room, right? So we know what we want to have happen. We know what we're preparing to have happen, but everything could go in a different way, and the judge or the jury or whoever is making decisions could say, nope, this isn't going, or we're throwing this out, or we don't get the verdict that we want. We have to make sure that people are ready for that and prepared for that. So even after a trial, we're working with families and loved ones of those incidents to help them move beyond those life situations.
It used to be a lot of times the victims were blamed.
Oh my gosh, there's still victim blaming going on. Oh, if you weren't in that bar. Oh, if you weren't wearing that slutty outfit. Oh, if you weren't hanging around with those certain people. Oh, if you didn't drink at the party. By the way, this is something that all college kids need to hear. We don't want college kids taking drugs or drinking. However, it happens. That will never be held against them if something terrible happens to them. If a man or a woman in a setting like that gets taken advantage of, gets raped, gets sexually assaulted, we will never hold against the fact that they were drinking or taking drugs, because no matter what the situation is, no matter where you were, what you were doing, what you're wearing, no one has the right to put their hands on another person without express consent. And so a lot of people still won't come forward because they're afraid, I don't want the police to know I'm only 20 and I was drinking at this party and, whatever, I was trying new things and I don't want that to be a part of it. It will never be a part of it. It's always about what happened as a victim and how do we make restitution and justification to bring those people who did those bad things to justice. The
emotions really come quick when in those situations that of the victim blaming.
Absolutely, they do, and it still happens. I can remember trying to be so patient with my parents when they were alive to help them understand. You're blaming the victim. Let's not do that. Nobody has the right to harm another person. I don't care where you are. I don't care what dumb thing you might have been doing. It doesn't give another person the right to harm you. And so we have to keep that in the forefront of our minds at all times. And all people need to remember, good behavior is keeping your hands to yourself, listening to people when they say, leave me alone, and not blaming people for what they were doing if something bad happened to them.
We are in a moment here with social media and instant video everywhere that violence is elevated and celebrated. I'm even thinking about that fight down in Meadville at the basketball game. That video was shown on ESPN and all over the country. And, look at that guy wailing on that guy. Like you say, keep your hands to yourself.
That's exactly right. And when parents are doing that and setting up those kind of bad examples for the young, impressionable minds, it helps nobody.
Wow. Again, talk about the history of victims' rights. And you said there was a crucial piece of legislation that brought all this about. Right?
Yeah. So this all started. We're 53 years old. Our agency was at the forefront and the cusp of this change, and lots of things were happening. The feminist movement was starting to take shape. People were starting to realize that rape, even saying that it's sanctioned inside a marriage, was wrong and horrible. And the legislative body became aware of this and said, wait a minute, we got to do something. The people are talking, and we are the representatives of the people, and so we need to make these laws to protect all people. So it started with women and children. And it started with the Violence Against Women Act way back in the 70s. And former President Biden was the founder and wrote the framework, which we still work by for the main constructs of the Violence Against Women Act. So it's been around for a while. It's strong. Every so many years, it gets reauthorized, and we look at it and say, okay, are we really serving the people we need? And although it's still called the Violence Against Women Act, it serves all people affected by crime. It also serves as the groundwork for Title IX and protections of people in colleges. That's a big part of that as well. And Title IX isn't just about women in sports. It's about protection for students in college so that they don't become victimized. And if they do, what are their rights? So the Bill of Rights pulled right out of that. And in Pennsylvania, it means that you have access to all those things. You have access to free counseling. You have access to advocacy. You have access to restitution. If we know the perpetrator and we have a form of restitution, and actually our office actually submits the restitution forms into the docket for the judges to look at and to decide how that's all going to turn out. We do all that work. But the Victim Bill of Rights says you have that right. You have the right to talk about your victimization. You have the right to keep it all confidential. We have Privileged Communication Act in our world. So that means if a victim just wants to talk to us and they don't want that to go anywhere else, we cannot say a word about it. We cannot even be subpoenaed, and we can be subpoenaed, but we cannot say anything in a court of law.
Do you have lawyers on staff or
we have
a referral?
We have a variety of lawyers that we refer to.
Okay, gotcha.
For different things, for different measures, but they all know it. And the judges, we have great judges in our county. They all know that the Privileged Communication Act that we have, we're never going to violate that unless we have specific written permission from the victim, and then only what they say we can reveal is what we can reveal, nothing else. So we have protection layer over layer more than most other counseling agencies in the nation.
That's really something else. Again, we're talking about National Crime Victims' Rights Week, which was just a couple weeks ago. Paul Lukach is the executive director of the Crime Victim Center. We're going to be back after the bottom of the hour news, and again, maybe give you some tools to be able to protect yourself, but also respond in a situation of violence. It's Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show here at 4:30. You've got your radio tuned to 105.9, 103.3, and AM 1530. It's talkerie.com and the Joel Natale Show, live, local, and award-winning here from our Kingdom Financial Group studio at 5th and State. Paul Lukach is with us. He is the executive director of the of the Crime Victim Center of Erie County.
Yeah,
you just got a promotion, exactly. But we're talking about National Crime Victims Week, which was April 6th through the 12th this month, and I've been wanting to have you on to kind of talk about your services and to just talk about this part of society, which really is. Wasn't that long ago we just whispered about these things, right, Paul?
Right.
I mean,
we didn't talk about it. These are things kept within family secrets. We didn't talk about it, and that's one of the problems. Is that sometimes these incestuous things in families, they then continue for generations. The grandfather abused, so now the father's abusing, so now the kid's going to grow up and abuse. And those are things we got to get out of. But we must talk about these things. We're in every grade school and high school doing things like good secrets, bad secrets, my body belongs to me, healthy relationships, and all of those things have to happen on a regular basis. And we must talk about the bad things in society so that we can eliminate them from our culture.
Talk about the funding streams. Is there any fee for service here, or is it?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
We operate on very competitive grants that we work very hard to get from the federal government, from the state, from private entity. We have partnerships with private business. We rely on the Erie Community Foundation.
I was going to say, you probably do pretty well at Erie Gives, right?
ECRA, right, all of those places. And we try to get to them and say, look, this is what you need to do. And I love those groups, especially Erie Gives, because it allows the community to say, this is what I want. This is what I want in my community. This is what I believe in. I'm going to put my dollars where I want them to be in my community. So I hope we continue to grow those programs. But yeah, we have to continue to not only serve the people who've been affected by crime, in any type of crime, in every way, shape, or form that they want to be served, and remove that trauma. And all of our programs are trauma-informed, but we also have to make sure that we're preventing the crimes on the other end. You can't just pull people out of the water. You got to find out why people are falling in the water in the first place.
Yeah, if there's any kind of generational circle, you've got to stop that.
Right.
You've got to stop that cycle.
Right.
Oh my gosh! I notice, the signs are up for April here, and you do some work with children's advocacy as well.
We work very closely with children's advocacy. We work with family services. We work with Office of Children and Youth, with the Health Department whenever we can. I mean, we International Institute. We want to have as many partners as we possibly can. Erie Dawn, who's actually one of our partners in our plaza.
Okay.
And Barb's Daycare, which opened last year. That's one of our groups too. We want to make sure that we have good partners who do different work, but still needed, so that we can get people to those good entities. Yeah. So we not only want to work, we not only want to create partnerships, we want to know what they're doing, and we want to be invested in what they're doing, so we can get good people into good services.
Are you finding that, again, people are able to say, this is a needed service, I'm going to support it? I mean, again, because we're dealing in an area that had taboos to it.
It's hard, I think. It's easy for a lot of people, especially people who've used our services or know someone who's used our services, to stroke that check, to come to our fundraisers, to support us in different, advocacy things that we're doing in the community. It's hard for people who aren't aware, or who are afraid, or who don't want to talk about this. We're not puppy dogs and kitty cats. We're not, frolicking, around with lions. And I hate to say that, but you see who gets the dollars in a lot of different communities. It's the happy stuff. We're not always happy. But if we don't exist, children will continue to be abused and not served. Crime will go up. Violent crime will increase. We are really kind of the thing that tamps that stuff down, and we want to continue to annihilate it if we possibly can.
I was really shocked. We have the police chief come in, talk about the statistics and things, and for a while there we had a lot of gangbangers. We had some youth gun violence that fell off after some very aggressive prosecution. But what came up was the domestic violence, and even to the point of homicide. And I mean, what do you do when the victim is dead. Do you have services for the families?
We
or-
absolutely do. We actually have grave sites that are donated to us for if we have families who can't do that or don't have a place to put their loved one for final resting place. But we work with funeral homes. We do all of that kind of stuff. And homicides are some of the hardest cases, and they almost always go to trial, which means we're working with those groups and those families and those loved ones and those communities for years on end until we get to some kind of resolve for those things.
And it takes, I mean, you think about the things you have to pay for. You need to be trained. I mean, to be in this kind of work. Again, you just got your doctorate, mind you.
There's a ton of training. You never stop learning. There's a ton of training. I have probably a handful of our staff who are just recent grads of the master's program, and another half who are going into it, because you can never stop learning. And crime changes. People change. The makeup of society changes. So we have to be aware of that too. For instance, we have the Congolese here. They're wonderful. We have the Nepali here. They're wonderful. We have people from all corners of the earth who come here as a resettlement community. We need to understand their belief systems. We need to understand their customs and cultures that are beautiful, that we can also then utilize in counseling, in care, in safety issues. And sometimes, like you heard early stories of the first couple of groups of Nepali come in, they were so trusting, but not of banks.
Okay.
So there was all these muggings going on early on because they kept all their money on their body.
Oh, my word.
And when nefarious people found that out, that became a target. So we had to figure out who could we go to and do these financial planning classes and talk about our banks aren't corrupt like your banks were. We get that. The Congolese are never going to trust the police. They have no reason to. That police were never a good thing. That was a bad word. And so when you come from these resettlement camps and you come into an environment that's still foreign to you, you need hand-holding and you need time, and we need to be patient to say, okay, let's learn about these cultures. Let's celebrate these cultures. What part of this culture can I use in healing and in integration to the community? And instead of saying we have to assimilate, let's celebrate differences and let's bring it in a positive and healthy way to the community so everybody wins.
You were talking about crime changes. One of the things that gets us fired up is another story of $60,000 getting drained out of a bank account because some foreign actor, attacks an elderly person, and all of a sudden their life savings is gone. What is a prevention strategy for something like that?
So one of the things we're doing, not only working with community centers and going to senior centers and working on those programs and being aware, but we're trying to work with the financial institutions too and say, can you raise a red flag when somebody says, I want to transfer this? Can you say, well, do you really know that person? Well, and ask a few more probing questions. And the banks are starting to do that. And again, it takes some patience and it takes some training, but we need to be a little bit more concerned about that. The other thing that's happening is, I found my lover online.
Oh,
and
my gosh.
He's coming. He or she's going to come and sweep me away. I just need to send them $500 and get them to get that plane ticket here. And we're going to have a great... No. So that's happening
insane.
Way too much.
Yes.
I'm
convinced I need to invest in this thing.
So it's not just about enlightening individuals in the community. It's about working with the financial sector. It's about working with the legal sector. It's about working with business sector to say, here are ways you can take care of your customers and and contribute with just a little bit of effort. We can all make this place safe.
It's so interesting, though, Paul, because, what's the trend? AI, using robots, using ATM machines, or using your phone. Yep. And so sometimes it's hard for that person to intervene, Yeah,
and again, sometimes come hell or high water, they're going to do what they're going to do. But I've also seen people kind of follow up. I've seen financial people kind of follow up and go, okay, I have to do this, but I'm going to put out some APBs and I'm going to follow up and I'm going to look into this website and actually eventually get this check stopped.
Oh, do you? Wow.
But again, we need to make that effort and we need to be able to educate everybody to say, here are things you can do. and this might be a way that today might not work, but tomorrow we might get that check stopped, and everybody's in a safer place. So we all gotta be on board. It's really it's a community effort. It takes a village, it takes a community, it takes a county to make this work.
It's got to be heartbreaking for those that have been victimized by family members. This is probably a horrible, hypothetical, but the drug addicted nephew or grandson or granddaughter that steals from grandma. I mean, and it's just this happening, drip, 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 drip. And what do you do about all that?
And they're not just stealing things or money. They're stealing drugs, and they're stealing other things that help make drugs, because they're so addicted and they're so in the downward spiral. And especially teenagers, our minds aren't even fully formed until we're like 25, right? And even then, I think we have questions about that. But so I
know 60-year-olds they have the emotional intelligence of middle school. Let's just face it, right?
So we have to be aware of that. And again, it goes back to where are our mentors? Where are people willing to step in? And what is our understanding of adolescence? What is our understanding of, I have some staff members who have teenagers and they're having their first relationships. And oh my God, if Sally, doesn't go to the dance with me, it'll be the end of the world. And you and I know that's not how it works. Right. But that's where they are. Yeah. So how do we be where they are and help them make positive decisions and still recognize that this is the world that they have right now? This is all that they have. It's hard, but we can do it. We need to be willing to do the work. Yeah.
Before we run out of time, I want to talk about, something that's not discussed very often, and that is sexual violence that men and boys face.
Yes, and it's a huge problem because we don't have all the women and children, females coming forward that we'd want to come forward, but it's even a lower number for men and boys. Because again, in society, we've said, oh, we're going to make you rough and tumble and you can take care of yourself, and we're going to get you out of box and wrestle, and you're going to do all these sports, so if something should happen, you should be able to take care of yourself. And then something happens. And the boy freezes because he doesn't know what to do. His body betrays him. He doesn't know what that means, and he's so confused. And adolescence is already such a confusing time anyway, right? We're encouraging them not to come forward. It's a more subtle way of victim blaming, but we have to get out of that. We have to tell men and boys it's okay to come forward. And we know that trauma is not truly relieved until you talk about it, until you work through it, until you understand where it's coming from, and most importantly, until you know where to put the blame. Never on yourself, always on that horrible person who had no right to put their hands on you in the first place. So there's a lot more work that needs to be done with men and boys, especially men of color. They come forward even at a lower rate than the traditional men and boys who come forward, right? So there's just so much more work, and we need to do that work in our churches, in our social groups, in our social gatherings. In our sports, we need to be talking about this in our sports league, in every grade school, high school, college. Wow. This needs to be a discussion in the locker room with the coaches and with the kiddos, and say, look, this is what sexual assault looks like. This is how you don't let it happen to you or your teammates. This is what you do if you do see it happening or you think it's happening. We need to have those conversations.
That's really, talk about a holistic approach to coaching. I mean, again, I believe that these coaches really believe in their kids and really love their kids. You got to lay it all on the line, because some of them will never get it from home or from other places.
That's exactly right. And that may be the only one mentor that you're looking up to, that coach that you want to do so well in, and they're taking an interest in you, and they're doing it all for the right reasons. That's what locker room talk should be about. It should be about consent, and it should be about treating each other civilly, and it should be about helping your fellow person. That's what when we talk about locker talk, that's what we should come to our mind.
Talk about some of the events that you have coming up here at the Crime Victims Center.
So we can't do it without the community, and we have great support in other ways, but fundraisers are always a good way to make friends and to have a good time. On Saturday, May 3rd is the Kentucky Derby, and we're having a party at the Lenovo Aurora from 3 to 7.
Nice.
It is going to be so crazy fun. Please come. There's a $20 entrance fee, but it includes food, and we're going to have build your own hats, and we're going to have a hat decorating competition. We're going to have small games of chance, 50-50 basket raffles. We're going to have stick pony races. And if you don't know what that is, you need to come and see the silliness that we're going to do. But it's going to be a fun day. Wow. I encourage people, get your tickets online, cvcerie.org, because we may sell out. We will sell them at the door, but you don't want to miss this. It's going to be so fun. And God bless the clubs, the social clubs like Lenovo Aurora, and like all the clubs who donate so much of their gambling proceeds to the community. That's huge. That is huge. And that's another reason why we get to stay in business, because of those clubs say, yes, we need you in our community and we're going to give to you. The other big event in the fall is our Moonlight on the Bay. And this year, it's September 5th, and it's a black tie optional event. This year, it's going to be at the Investment Amphitheater, which is the amphitheater in Liberty Park. They just changed their name to the
Rebich
Rybach
Investment, right.
Investment. But we're excited to be there. Again, it's otherworldly. We're probably one of the only groups brave enough to still do outside events, but we do it and we have fun, and the food is great and the dancing's great, and again, it's just a great way to be with your friends. And to support the amazing work that the Crime Victims Center does every single day.
Before I let you go, let's give some positive encouragement to those that are like wondering, did something happen to? I mean, again, because you can shut it down. I'm thinking of maybe parents of a kid that might have had something, or a person themselves.
Make the call, 814-455-9414. Just inquire. You don't even have to give your name. Just say, I think something might happen. I don't know. Make that call. That's our number. Make the call to Office of Children and Youth. Make the call to the 1-800-CHILD hotline number. Make a call. It's okay to say, I'm not sure. It's even like when you see nefarious people outside a neighbor's house, and they might just be checking on the house, but you don't know that. Call the police and say, hey, I don't know what's going on, but I care for my neighbor, and I just want to make sure that that house is okay. I know they're out of town or whatever. If you see something, you need to say something. If you're in a bar and something looks strange, don't be afraid to go to the bouncer or to the bartender or to a staff member and say, hey, that table down in the corner, I'm not liking what I'm hearing. I went past it to the restroom and I heard some really bad stuff. Can you just go check it out? It's okay to do that. If we don't do that, something bad could happen. Every person has an opportunity to prevent a crime in our community.
Yeah, the passivity doesn't work.
We have to be positive bystanders, and that's what being that, telling somebody in charge, making the phone call, inquiring. Those are all good ways to be a positive bystander without getting in trouble yourself.
We'll leave it there. Paul Lukach, Executive Director of the Crime Victims Center. Again, the website?
www.cvcerie.org.
All right. Appreciate it, sir. Back in a bit. It is 4:52.